It's my life. Lazy. It's my life. I got dirty. It's my life.
And welcome back to Collect Them All or Die Trying, the spoiler rooms, comic clip notes, and thank you for all your continued support for the channel. So keep on smashing that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and check out the links in the descriptions to find out how you can save 15% on your next order at Coffee and the Comic to get new releases and back issue comics or any other comics you might see right here on this channel. So go ahead, spoil yourself. We are back with the conclusion to Maniac of New York, End of the Line Part 2. Last issue left us with a hell of a twist and a discovery of an ancient amulet that may possess the power to stopping Harry. But in this issue, we open up back on the death train before the initial attack by Maniac Harry even begun. Back to the moment where Lena and Jonah thought they were safe, talking about the pizza party they're going to have at school, and Jonah's bragging about how much more pizza he's going to eat than Lena until they hear a scream from the back of the train, which grabs their attention. And sure enough, the commotion is coming from Maniac Harry, making human shish kebabs at the end of the car like a Times Square street vendor. Lena's mom attempts to hide the kids until Harry decapitates her in front of those poor children. The amount of trauma and years of therapy they will have to endure. But the most intriguing thing about this is that Harry seems to be targeting Lena directly, literally calling out her name and even verbally reporting to himself that he must kill Lena. You know, like when you have to go to the store and get milk and you keep telling yourself you have to get milk, but you end up forgetting the milk anyway. Yeah, like that. But Lena and Jonah run as fast as they can from Harry, who will stop at nothing to kill Lena. And as they're running, Jonah gets trapped in what seems to be quicksand as Lena tries effortlessly to get Jonah out. But all he keeps doing is sinking deeper and deeper, and Lena is forced with the difficult decision: run and save herself, or help rescue her friend, or die trying, as Harry comes up on Lena as she's trying to save Jonah. And before Harry can chop Lena down, she wakes from this horrible nightmare to faint voices coming from the living room. And I couldn't help but notice a Dirty Dancing movie poster on her wall. Nobody puts baby in the corner. This nightmare represents so much for Lena. Not only her trauma for the loss of her parents and the events that took place on the death train, but also her fear that Harry's still out there and he may want to kill her because, after all, she's one of the only few that survived the death train. And Jonah represents Lena's mental state and faith in humanity as it sinks slowly like quicksand deeper and deeper into darkness, and Lena's failed attempt to get it back and hard decision as a child to suffer through the pain and anguish of recovering from such a horrific ordeal, or just run away from her problems in general, and a complete depiction of how what Lena's been through haunts her dreams and no longer has pleasant dreams but nightmares. Lena follows the faint voices to the living room. After the loss of her parents, this leaves Lena in the care of her grandmother, who's sitting and watching a television interview of Gina Greene, who we all know from last issue played the scapegoat and took the blame for the death train and the fault for the mayor. Haggerty, the host of the show, goes on an interview illustrating the failure of New York City's Maniac Task Force, and hundreds still dead, and all for what? So Harry can have his own private train? He also goes as far as to blame the government for creating Harry as a distraction while they stole the people's liberations and freedoms, and even tells Gina that she should be ashamed of herself. And while Lena begs for a chance to explain her side of the story, Lena's grandmother protests to the television for Gina not to get that chance. And I believe Lena's grandmother is the description of how 90% of New Yorkers feel about Gina now that she took the fall for the mayor. Lena startles her grandmother as she taps her from the back to let her know she had a nightmare. And her grandmother suggests that she stay up a little while, as Lena asks why Jonah couldn't be there with them. And she tells Lena that she didn't have room for both of them and that New York is not her home anymore. And Lena's grandmother shows regret for letting Lena's mom go to New York in the first place. And Lena points out to her grandmother that Gina was the woman that saved her on the death train. But Lena's grandmother refuses to believe that and just calls Gina a horrible, horrible person. Gina almost regrets making that deal with the devil to keep her job by taking the blame for the bloodshed she tried to prevent. But her will to catch and stop Harry is far more stronger, and she said she will stop at nothing, no matter what, to kill Maniac Harry. Gina will withstand the disapproval, the hate, the backlash, the dirty looks, the shame, even the casual coffee dump. As Gina fights through the protesters, she's approached by Gabriella Costa's daughter, who spits in her face because she blames her for her mother's death. As Gina, she tries to explain to her that her mother died a hero. And Gina, she could stand all this. She could stand everything. The only thing Gina can't stand is not knowing for sure if she destroyed the monster that ruined her life. As Gina gets to her car and drives off, she glares out the window at the residents of New York, who go on with their lives knowing the death that surrounds them. They just say their prayers, move on, and forget. But not Gina. No matter what they think or say about her, someday, somehow, she will know that Maniac Harry is gone, and maybe then they will see her for who she really is. Or maybe not. Gina really doesn't care. All she cares about is justice for the dead. Then we transition over to Zelda Pettibone to see how she's faring with Death Train's aftermath. And she's having a bit of fun making the police force sing out of tune a song of congratulations to her. But what makes this all the more enjoyable is the fact that Zelda knows these guys hate her guts. Seeing them pretend to be proud of the hero cop who put her life on the line to save 2 children from Maniac Harry is just making them sick to their stomach to throw a party for Zelda, who they consider a snitch. But it seems like Zelda got her focus on, and she even turns down a drink that's offered from one of the officers. It's definitely the end times if Zelda is turning down a drink. Now the mayor stands on the table to give a speech of encouragement, but goes on to say that they will give New York an automated train and nobody will stop them. We even get a glimpse of Gina's office door sign that says Maniac Task for Now instead of Force. And within the office, Gina and Zelda conversate about ideas on the Maniac Harry free zones and how Harry just might be dead, because there haven't been one killing since the death train and since they lit Harry on fire and sent him running with his tail between his legs. Zelda also points out and asks Gina why she still has Josh's picture on the wall, and Gina tells her that Josh, he's just not satisfied yet. Then Gina gets a call on the phone and answers to an anonymous person who asks Gina why did she take the fall for the death train, as Gina prompts the caller to tell her who it is, and of course it's Gardner Birnbaum, who announces himself as the best-selling author of the book Bloody New Year, and proceeds to ask Gina why she took the fall. And Gina goes on to say that she took the blame because she is to blame, and Birnbaum doesn't believe that that's the official story at all. And Birnbaum calls Gina out, saying that this act was selfish and cynical, something her boss would do, because Gina, she's more of a problem solver and an idealist. More to convince herself, she tells Birnbaum that he doesn't know her, and not to use the word death train because it's an insult to the victims, and hangs up on Birnbaum before telling him to never call her again. And in Birnbaum's hand, we get to see a piece of paper with potential titles for his next book, and the only one not crossed out is The Death Train. Classic Birnbaum. Now, of the list of titles for his next book was End of the Line, which is the last 2 issues of the Maniac of New York series, Express to Hell, Closing Doors, and Dark of the Tunnel, which honestly all sound like titles for B-list horror movies. Then we jump to the moment Lena seems to be most obsessed with, the moment she can't seem to shake, the moment Harry froze when they reached 81st Street and the Museum of Natural History, the moment she met with Harry eye to eye, and for the first time, she saw Harry in fear. He was afraid. Then back at Lena's grandmother's house, Lena attempts to call Zelda Pettibone with some info that may be critical to know, but Lena's grandmother snatches the phone from Lena for being on the phone so late and questions the person on the other end for being on the phone with a 6-year-old at that time of night. And Lena, she tries with no success to tell her grandmother that she knows something and she wants to help and remembers something about Harry. But the grandmother shrugs it off and tells Lena to forget about it and to watch TV with her rather than sneaking out at night and making long-distance phone calls. As they watch Mr. Haggerty, the same guy that interviewed Gina Greene, Lena points out that she doesn't really like this guy that much, and the grandmother states that he's the only one that really gets it. But other than the fact that he's got the wrong info on Gina, he still has some valid points, because I myself have thought this scenario a few issues back. theories and questions that need to be explained or viewed, like why aren't citizens arming themselves for protection or organizing state manhunts for Maniac Harry? I mean, the government had 3 years to step in to kill this guy and hasn't, which leads to conspiracy theories that Harry might just be working for the government. And we get to see Haggerty finish up his set and leave for the night. As Haggerty leaves the office building, he's stopped by a homeless guy who asks him to help out a guy down on his luck, and Haggerty says no, and the homeless guy just compliments Haggerty on his suit and then asks him again for some help, to where Haggerty tells the homeless guy to stay back or he'll call the cops. Then the homeless guy tells Haggerty to not be an asshole because if the tables were turned, he'd help him. Haggerty takes offense to what the homeless guy just said and shouts that he will never be him or vice versa, and proceeds to shove the guy and prove to be the asshole he's claimed to be. As Haggerty jumps in his car and drives away, the homeless guy flicks him the finger and Haggerty says to himself, "Where's the maniac when you need him?" As the homeless guy walks down the alley complaining about the dens and nows, he sees a shadowy figure in the distance and asks if he's going to be generous or an asshole too, and the muffled grunt sounds awfully familiar when he's grabbed at the shoulders by Maniac Harry and is impaled through the chest as Harry gazes with a sense of satisfaction and walks up into a crowded street. Thank you for joining me in this 5-issue series and the conclusion of Maniac of New York. But the series continues in the Bronx is Burning issue 1 on the Spoiler Room's Maniac of New York playlist. List for that will be in the descriptions. And join me in a new series, Bronx is Burning. As we know, Harry survived his counterattack on the death train and makes his way to a whole new borough, the Bronx. The ancient 15th century amulet remains a mystery. Lena goes on a journey to find Gina and Zelda in New York with a secret, and the duo continue their hunt for Harry. And just when you think it could get any worse, they go to the Bronx. Bronx is Burning issue 1 is already up on the comics Cliff Notes. Part 2 coming soon. And I'll see you in the comments. Peace.
It's my life.